The Tim Heale Thirsty Thursday live stream from 7 until 9 weekly. Here's your host, Tim Heale.
So for now, we're just going to take a short break. And I'm taking a short break just to let you know what's coming up in the next few weeks. So I'm just going to give you a quick heads up. And the reason I'm doing that is because we're going to not just have this go out as a 2-hour thing, we're going to drop it down into 4 half-an-hour segments. So if you don't get a chance to watch the whole thing, you can watch parts of it. So this is this week. This is the bereavement special, and I think you'll agree that the guests that we've had on so far have been pretty awesome. I've got a couple more guests coming that are going to be equally as awesome, and their stories is equally as harrowing. Next week is the veteran suicide special. I'm working through the figures at the moment. It looks on average in the UK there are roughly around about between 5,000 and 6,000 people a year taking their lives in this country, and a vast majority or a large number of those are veterans, and we need to identify the problems and help and let them know that there's help out there, and we need to have that conversation. Suicide is a terrible thing, but it shouldn't be stigmatised. The following week is the archaeological special, and you know you want to come in for that one. That's going to be fascinating. And the way that we're going to be looking at that is, yes, we're looking at the archaeology side of it, but we're also going to look at what happens on, you've got a big construction site, and all of a sudden they dig up some bones. They close the site down. Everything has to stop. They call the archaeologists in. The archaeologists are under immense pressure to get the site open again. That's going to have a bit of effect on the mental health, and that's what we're going to be looking at. That sort of effect. Yes, we're going to look at the archaeological side of it, and that's going to be fascinating because we've got a marine archaeologist, we've got some land archaeologists, and an environmental archaeologist. So those 4 aspects of archaeology that we're going to be looking at. It's going to be a fascinating show. 13th of October, I'm working on a little project. Hopefully it's all going to come together, but it involves dogs. But I'll let you know if I can pull that off. The following week, I'm toying with the idea of either having an open forum like we had last month, or I might do a special on cancer, and I've got something working on there. 3rd of November, another date for your diary. I've got a couple of fighter pilots going to join me, and I'm hoping to get a couple more fighter pilots coming in. So in the meantime, if you want, you can buy me a coffee. So, back to the guests. Richard, I think, can you tell your story?
I certainly can. Hi everybody. My story goes back probably 7 or 8 years. My partner Becky I actually rescued her from an abusive marriage, and we met frequently for probably 2 years, and then in 2016 the last straw was that he was abusing her and everything else, and she rang me crying her eyes out, and I rescued her, basically. Excuse the cat behind me. And I said, well, you can't go on like this. So I rescued her, and she stayed with my sister for a couple of months, and then she said, I can't be doing with this. So I took her in, and we lived together for 5.5 years. And the story goes, within the last 3 years, she suffered badly with her health, and she had to have a stoma because her large bowel was defunct. so she had to have a stoma. And over the last 3 years, she gradually went downhill. She had severe asthma. She had a stoma. She had a permanent catheter and everything else. Go down. You're not sitting on me. Sorry about that. And her health just gradually got worse and worse. So she was going in and out of hospital for maybe 2.5 years when she had the stoma done in 2019. But over the last 18 months or so before, she was in and out of hospital probably once every 2-3 months, and she was in there for quite a long spell. And then last year, her health went really downhill. She was on steroids. She put lots and lots of weight on. Her mental health was failing and everything else. So she went to see psychiatrists and psychologists and everything else. And they were putting her on medication, and that didn't help. They put her on more steroids, and she went from sort of from 12 stone to 22 stone, and that didn't help her at all. But anyway, from the beginning of last year, 2021, she must have been in hospital 6-7 times. And the last time was this year. She went in at the end of January, and it was really serious. And she called me into the bedroom and she said, "I think I'm dying." So I said, "Well, what's the problem?" She said, and she was spewing up brown, horrible, smelly bile, and it was absolutely awful. And I was making a drink and everything else, but it came to a head at the end of January this year, where I called 999, and they came at 5 o'clock in the morning and took her into hospital in Leicester. I was sat at home. I couldn't go in, obviously, because of COVID. I was sat here at home, and at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the consultant rang me up and he said, "I think you need to come to the hospital now." So I said, "Well, it will take me at least half an hour to get there from where I live to get into Leicester." So I got there, and they sedated her, but they hadn't put her on a ventilator, and she was sedated. And he said, "I need your permission to operate, to do an exploratory operation." I said, you can do anything you want so long as you keep her alive." So I gave him permission, and he said, "Would you like to see her?" So I went into the accident department at Leicester Royal Infirmary, and she was sedated. She obviously didn't know I was there, but they said, "We're going to take her down for a scan." Came back and they said, "We need to operate right now, but it's that serious." So anyway, they did that, and I came back home, and I was really upset, because I was feared for her life. And they operated that evening, and the next day he said, "Well, we've done the operation. It's been a success. They removed the stoma that she had previously, and they removed 2 meters of her bowel from where the stoma was." And I said, "Well, what was the reason of that?" And she said, "Well, the reason was that her bowel had died, basically." So they removed that, and they replaced the stoma in the same site as it was before. So I was really glad of that. And unfortunately, the next day I had to play last post at a funeral for a guy from my last regiment. And just as I got in the car, this other surgeon rang me up and he said, Are you okay?" I said, "Yes, I'm fine." He said, "Well, we had to put Becky into a coma." I said, "Oh, it was that serious?" And he said, "Yes, and we had to do the operation, otherwise she would have died anyway." And what happened was, with the bowel being dead, it was poisoning her major organs, her liver, kidneys, and her heart. And I said, okay. So she was in a coma for 10 days. I went in every single day and I took music in because we both play in a brass band. And obviously she came everywhere with me when we played in the band and when I used to play last post at funerals and everything. And after 10 days, she came out of the coma. And then they put her onto a surgical unit. A surgical... Get down, cat. Go on, get down. Blooming cat is a nuisance, isn't he? You saw him last time, Tim.
Yeah.
He's a nuisance.
He's great. He's great.
He's a pain in the backside. And
my cat doesn't do that.
I know. No, he loves it. He's a beautiful cat. But anyway, they put her onto a surgical ward. And to me personally, I thought the care on that ward was absolutely atrocious. They used to bring physios in and all that, and they had nobody from the mental health team come to see her. And she'd been there for about a week. And then this sister came up to me and she said, oh, we're going to discharge Becky next Friday. I said, no, you're not. I said, the only time you're going to discharge her if you put a care plan in place, which they didn't do. So she stayed in for another week or so. And they said, well, the best environment for Becky's rehabilitation would be to be in her own environment. So I said, okay, you can do that, but I want a care plan in place. So they said, yes, we've got it all in place. So they gave me a sealed envelope with a discharge letter and everything else. And when I got back home, I read the discharge letter. They didn't put a care plan in place. So I was not a very happy bunny. And then consequently, after 10 days of being at home, she passed away with me in the car, which was really sad. But nobody knows that. I told her to get in touch with the patient liaison people at the hospital, which she did. And they said, oh, yes, we'll get in touch with the various agencies to come out and look after Becky and this, that, and the other. But nobody came out. The only person that came out was a stoma nurse. And she came out on the Monday, and that'd been after her being out 10 days. And then Tuesday morning, I got her up and ready because I was driving to North Wales to go and play last post at a military funeral. And you know all about my bugling anyway, Tim, when we served together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Down, cat. And I got her in the car. She got in the car okay. She pulled herself up with a grab handle inside the door so she could shuffle her onto the seat, and I got her swung around with her legs in and put a seatbelt on. I put a wheelchair in the back of the car, and I said, right, we're off. We're going to the seaside because we was going to North Wales near Heale to play last post for a military funeral. So anyway, we started off, got on the M1 motorway, driving north. And just before I turned onto the A50 to get to North Wales, I said to her, are you all right, sweetie? And she didn't answer. And I actually got onto the A50 and I said, well, you're not talking to me then. And a couple of seconds after that, I put my hand down the side of her seat and her hand was freezing cold. And I knew then that there was something wrong. So I pulled into a lay-by on the side of the road, and she was dead. So I rang 999, and being military as I was, and trained medical, trained as a medic as well, I pushed the seat back and started doing CPR, and within 2 or 3 minutes, an ambulance car turned up, and that's when we got her out of the car and started doing the defib. But I knew then that there was nothing they could do. So I never made the funeral in North Wales. I ended up going to Derby Royal Infirmary instead. And they pronounced her dead there, but I knew she was dead beforehand. And it was so sad. I was so professional because being in the army, you see death and all this, that, and the other. But and we are close. We were all close friends in the military, as you know, Tim. And we've lost guys in the battalion, and the whole lot. but it's not the same as losing somebody as close as a partner or a wife or or whatever, and family members. And prior to that, the month before that, in January, I lost one of my sisters, and she was handicapped and she couldn't talk, but she could walk, and that was because when I was a young lad, the doctors said that she'd never be able to walk, and I said, "Oh yes, she will," and I taught her how to walk. But she couldn't talk or anything, and she would have been 60 this year, but she died in January this year before her 60th birthday. So I was grieving for my sister at the time Becky died the way she did. And
tragic.
But even now, way before that, when she was ill before Christmas, or even when she was ill 2 years ago, she said to me, "If anything happens to me, you've got to get on with your life." And I'm a true believer in that. But it's like Catherine said, to me personally, it's no good grieving in silence. And I can't do that because I'm not that sort of person. Because I've been so busy since Becky died in just over 6 months ago. As you know, I've played all over the country playing at military funerals. Yeah. It doesn't matter whether he's in the Royal Navy, he's a bootneck at the Royal Marine, or he's in the Army or the Royal Air Force. I'll play for anybody that need a bugler. And you know what my standards of playing's like. We've known each other for a long, long time, even in the battalion. And that's what I've been doing. I've been playing with my brass band, and I've got so much support through them. And they love Becky to bits because she played in the band with me. And I find it difficult when I see something on TV, and it makes me think back to what Becky and I had over the last 5.5 years of being together. And she was before we came together. She used to ride horses. She used to do equestrian. She used to do cross country and teach people to ride and all this, that, and the other, and play in a brass band as well, where she played in Staffordshire with a band there, and played with several bands that I played for as well. And the last band that I still play for, and Becky played for, is a band in Newhall near Swadlincote in Leicestershire, or South Derbyshire. And the support I got off all those people, even friends from our battalion. I've got hundreds of friends on Facebook, and serving with two regiments, like with the Royal Anglian, 2nd Battalion Royal Anglian Regiment, the Poachers, and then transferring to the Royal Regiment of Fusiliers as a drum major. I've got hundreds and hundreds of friends from both regiments. And yesterday I actually, we all know each other, and we had a laugh at Harry's funeral not so long back. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
When I was stood at the back and Ian Wilkins was in his wheelchair, and there were so many people at Harry's funeral, it was unreal. Yeah. And I'm stood in the foyer to play last post, and all the guys from the battalion saying, "We'll be listening." I said, "Yeah, just like you did when I was on duty in the battalion and all that." And it was a fantastic funeral. And it was so funny, Harry's funeral. But I think back to when I arranged Becky's funeral as well, and it was all based around music, basically. Everything at the funeral was based around music. I had a brass band to play. My brass band played, and several guests that Becky knew, and played her favourite tune and everything else. And right at the end, in fact, when I did her tribute, I made it so funny and comical and what have you, because some of the things that we used to do and everything else. But when it was time for me to say goodbye, that's when I cracked.
Yeah.
But she's still here.
That's probably one of the hardest moments.
It was.
Is that final sort of goodbye.
But the thing was, me and Becky bounced off each other. She was a blooming good player, and I went. There was one time. It's a short little story. There was one time I went out to my car, and Becky happened to pick my instrument up out of my case, and she was playing to a guy who was probably one of the most renowned players in the world, who played a soprano cornet, which is a different pitch to what I play. And she picked up my cornet, and she was playing along with this guy on YouTube. And I said, "What are you doing?" She said, "I'm playing along with Peter Roberts." And I said, "You're playing it on a B flat cornet?" She said, "I'm transposing." And I said, "You cheeky so and so." I said, "I can't do that. I'm an experienced musician." And we just bounced off each other. No matter what, we always used to bounce off each other. I'd make a comment, she'd make a comment back, and we'd just like we do, and bounce off each other.
Bit of banter.
And it was all banter, and there was no, we had such a fantastic relationship. It was unreal. But when she died, it's even now, I look at her photos, and I'm looking at her photo now that somebody put a collage together from her funeral, and it's just surreal, the way it happened. And I thought I'd blame myself, because she said to me on the morning that we was going to North Wales, "Oh, leave me at home, I'll be all right." And I said, "Oh, no, you're not." Because at the back of my mind, I thought, well, if I leave her at home and I've driven 200 miles to get to North Wales and come back and she's dead, I'd never forgive myself. You know what I mean? And I would never have forgiven myself.
No.
If I'd have come back at 11 o'clock at night from being in North Wales and found her at home, had passed away. And I said to her, "You're not going." I said, "You always enjoy coming with me and this, that, and the other. But circumstances were that she passed away while she was next to me in the car."
Yeah.
And that was really, really hard. And there was no sign of anything. So she just passed. She must have fell asleep and passed away. And I came to terms with it whilst I was there at the time. But when I got back, I broke down in the mortuary when I went to see her in the mortuary, and then switched back on, and then I drove home. And when I walked into the bungalow, that was it. I'd gone. I just remained here, and I just did what I had to do, and everything else, all the arrangements and the whole lot. And I went to see a bereavement counsellor at the Undertakers, the Undertakers firm. A lot of the guys are ex-military, so there's a lot of banter between me and them when we meet up, and I'm doing a funeral for them. But the Undertaker's a close friend of mine, and he did a fantastic job, an absolutely fantastic job. And the celebrant was another close friend of mine, and she did a superb job. And everybody commented on the way that I ran the funeral. I'd arranged all the funeral. I'd arranged for the band and guests that wanted to come along. I arranged. I planned everything. I planned everything. She wanted. I played a solo with the brass band that I made a CD on, and she loved the solo, so I played that. That was part of the funeral. And our favourite song was for the slideshow, photos with her horses and her son, and when we played in the band, and me getting dressed up in my regimental blazer to go and play Last Post and all this, that, and the other. And she used to love it, absolutely loved it. And obviously, I am getting over it, because I'm just have to get on with life, don't you? And I turned 70 last week, or the week before last, and
congratulations.
Thank you. An old man, but still doing my bit for King and Country now.
King and Country,
yeah, King and Country.
No mean feat getting to 70,
Well, yeah, I know. Well, I was always fit when I was in the army, so I kept it up when I came out into Civvy Street and all that, and just do what I have to do, really, and looking after the animals, like the black cat who's been a pain in the neck. He's not here now, but and all that. But like Kathy said, people grieve in different ways,
Yeah.
and I grieve through playing music, to be honest, and that's the way I look at it. Because Becky loved playing with the bands and everything, and she loved coming with me when I played Last Post up and down. Funny story. She said to me one day, "I've booked you in to play at a funeral." I said, "Where at?" She said, "Paul." I went, "Paul?" She said, "What do you mean, Paul?" I said, "How far is that?" I said, "Well, from here it's about 200 miles." So it's a 400-mile trip and get down to Paul in Dorset. And anyway, so we went down there, and she said, "Well, why did you make that sort of reaction?" I said, "Because it's a long way." She said, "I thought it was Goole in Lincolnshire," which wouldn't have been too bad, because it's only about 90 miles away from where I am now. And it's so funny. Oh, some of the stuff she used to get up there was unreal, absolutely unbelievable. But yeah, as for grieving, I know Kathy lost a daughter, which I'm very sorry to hear. And it's the same with losing a spouse or a partner like I have, and many people grieve in different ways. And I've got a friend who I've known for quite a while. She lost her partner a couple of years ago, and she said, I said, "Well, what are you doing about your grieving?" She said, I'm grieving in silence. And I said, "Well, you can't do that."
No.
I said, "I know a lot of people do, but you can't grieve in silence." And she said,
It
"Well,
just,
I'll do it in my own way. I'll do it when I'm ready." I said, "But it's been a long time." And I said, "It may be too long, and you're going to end up having a nervous breakdown or something like that," which I think she will. And she's
yeah,
been working so hard, and she cares for her auntie and her mother as well. And it's hard work looking after somebody. But I looked after Becky ever since she came out, having a stoma done in 2019, and it is hard work. It really is hard work caring for someone. Well, you know what it's like, Tim, when you care for your
yeah,
first wife.
I
You
did,
know,
yeah.
you know,
It's,
and
it's, it's,
I'm
it's
glad
really
that
tough.
it is hard work.
Yeah,
And people don't understand that. People don't understand how hard it is to look after somebody 24/7.
yeah,
And and we never. Well, we did. We went a couple of times to Portugal on holiday, and we absolutely adored it in Portugal. But since COVID in 2020 and up until now, I've had
yeah,
one holiday in 3 years, and I
yeah.
just took my caravan down to Cornwall for a week a couple of weeks ago.
Brilliant.
And it was great. It was just time to recharge the batteries and get on with it. And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm going to bereavement counselling. I've got a meeting on the 5th of October with a group of people just to talk about my experience. And I had so many messages of condolence from hundreds of people from both regiments that I'd served with and everything else. And I'm still doing what I enjoy doing, is playing music
Yeah,
and meeting lots of my old mates like yourself and some of the other guys and what have you. I went down to Billy Friend's partner Marley, and I played at her
yeah.
father's funeral down in
Funeral, right.
Ipswich. And
Well, I think that's probably one of the best ways of dealing with grief and
yeah,
bereavement is to talk about it.
yeah. I
Um,
said that to this friend of mine, Joanne. I said, "You got to talk to people." I said, "I'm here 24/7. I'm retired, so I can do what I
yeah,
want. Really, I can stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning and get up at 6 o'clock and still feel as fresh as a daisy." But I don't. But yeah, I'm getting too old for that.
yeah. Well, anyway, thanks, Richard, for now.
You're very
Um,
welcome, buddy.
we'll drop you down and we'll bring you back in a little while.
Thanks, mate.
Just gonna have another ad break. Should we call it an ad break? This is just so I can when I edit it down, I can drop it into 4 parts. So we've got some stuff coming up in the future. I won't do it again just now, but I'll do it again in half an hour's time. But if there's a taboo subject that you want us to discuss, to bring out into the open, to normalise, to bring it into an everyday conversation, let us know. Drop it in the chat box, and we'll put together a panel of special guests to talk about it all. bullying. Is that? Oh, bugling. Bullying. Anyway, in the meantime, I noticed that there's only 3 people out of all you lovely people out there watching that have smashed the like button or the love button. So if you'd like to do that, and then we'll get on to our next guest.
The Tim Heale Thirsty Thursday live stream from 7 until 9 weekly.